My ambition was just to run up the Tour behind me without stopping, and I thought it was going to take forever, but in reality it didn't take me very long at all, and it made me really happy. And so what I decided to do was to go and ask some people, a plethora of people, elite athletes, world record holders, people that knows what happens in your brain when you do exercise, and people that actually put that into action. And I asked them one question. And so what happens in the brain when we exercise, that exercise high? I did a Zoom call with the effervescent couple, Dr. Simon Marshall and Leslie Patterson, and they told me what happens to you when you exercise, one in theory, chemically, and the other in practice. Can you tell us what exactly happens in the brain during exercise?
Well, what's happening in your brain, Grant, might be a little bit different than the rest of us, but for most people, there's a whole series of things that we've only just sort of learnt about in the last sort of 5 or 10 years, which is quite a short amount of time in the science world. And that's really because we've been able to do a much better job of measuring what's happening in the brain, sometimes indirectly and sometimes directly, or we've been able to study poor little animals who have similar brain mechanisms to us. So we've learned a little bit more. And so one of the things, for example, that we have learned is that the runner's high, that sort of sense of euphoria that we've runners worldwide or athletes worldwide will know about, caused by this endorphin rush, is actually a myth. That's not the reason you feel good. Can you believe that? And one of the reasons is because endorphins, they're too big to pass the blood-brain barrier. So whilst they help us physically cope with strenuous activity to make it feel less painful and to cope with it, it doesn't actually do much to explaining why we feel better in our heads. So, the endorphin sort of theory is a bit like, the theory of why a big puffer jacket helps you become addicted to the cold. It doesn't. It just helps you cope with the cold a bit better. So now one of the more evidence-based mechanisms is this whole system called the endocannabinoid system. You may have heard of that in the context of cannabinoids or marijuana, which is the buzzword, particularly in California at the moment. But it's the brain's and body's ability to create a sense of euphoria and lightness and feel-goodness just because of the way that certain neurotransmitters are helped. So this natural sense of endocannabinoids that get released when we do exercise seems to play a big role in telling us how we feel better. Unfortunately, and here's the bad news of it, is that one of the things that predicts adherence to exercise, the ability to keep doing it week in, week out, is those affective responses to single bouts. And what that means is if I go out exercising for the first time and I might be asthmatic or I'm just overweight, it just feels uncomfortable. Nothing about this feels good. Where's this damn runner's high? It feels a runner's low as far as I'm concerned. Those experiences predict the likelihood to giving it a go next time. So they are very sort of feely, emotional experiences. So if we can somehow both enable or help people do fairly unpainful exercises, usually low to moderate, to build up and let that endocannabinoid system get really running, we're more likely to lead to a sort of a pattern of behavior that is going to keep us going and make us feel better because of it.
So there's the theories, which, that's amazing. Thank you. Now let's talk about the practicalities of it, because next to you is Leslie. Leslie, you're so enigmatic as a person, and you do, together as a couple, you do so much. But why did you choose to do fitness? Why did you choose to be, a world champion athlete, basically?
Well, I just decided to choose it and it happened. I didn't have to do it. It's really funny because literally my mum will tell you that I came out exercising out of the womb. I loved to move. Now, I was a dancer as well. I was a ballet dancer and a rugby player as I was growing up. And then I turned to kind of running and triathlon. So I think I love the way movement feels. I love that kinesthetic awareness of moving through space and time. It gives me a real sense that I'm alive. And then there's the piece of it which is about nature. I grew up in, a beautiful part of Scotland, in the Trossachs, which is stunning.
Yeah.
And being out there just made me feel special. It made me feel like I was experienced something in the world that so many other people were not. And that just was wonderment for me. So all kind of started from both the kinesthetic awareness to the being outside and the outdoors. And then I think maybe it's the Scottish Calvinism in me, but I love to suffer. It's like I can't truly enjoy life unless I suffer.
So happiness is only part of the motivation for some. I went to go and speak to absolute rock star ultra runner John Kelly about what motivates him, and of course, in true John Kelly style, he brought the weather. Why do something as extreme as the Barclay Marathons when you could just go to a gym like a normal person?
No one's doing ultra running specifically to get fit or to stay in shape or for the physical health benefits. This is more about challenging ourselves and really putting ourselves out there to discover what our strengths and weaknesses are and see what we're capable of and get to explore some pretty incredible places in the process. Getting out in nature really just allows me to disconnect from the hassles and the stresses of everyday life, from sitting at a computer for most of my work day, and to really just get to enjoy the beauty that's out there and that so many people miss, and really reconnect with a part of me that I think is a big piece of human nature that is missing in a lot of people's lives.
Can you paint a picture of what it's like to be in the middle of one of these extreme events? What happens, when you're right in the middle of it?
So there are definitely a lot of lows. I'd be lying if I said it was all fun and games. There are some quite miserable and painful points that you reach. And so that's part of discovering kind of what your strengths and weaknesses are and what you're capable of, and it really strips you down to the bare essentials.
And where's the happiness in that?
It's kind of two parts for that. So the first is what you would traditionally think of, where it's a fun experience. Again, you're seeing places that most people would never see, just beautiful mountains and landscapes, and it's an incredible experience to be out there and to not have to worry about kind of the hustle and bustle of everyday life, to be disconnected. The second part is what we commonly call type 2 fun, where it's not fun while we're doing it, but then we look back on it after the fact. We look at what we've achieved, we look at the experience, we look at how much we learned and growed through doing it. And that brings a great sense of happiness from that.
You've said that you are thinking more deeply about the challenges that you want to do and the length of them because you now have a small family. How did that change in your mind?
So it's definitely tough to find that balance. And the kind of irony in this is that getting out there, spending time doing these things is something that gets me to recognize what is valuable in life and what I can do better with regards to my family, and it makes me a better person, a better husband and a better father. So past a certain point though, that improvement is not gonna, there's no additional improvement there. I'm just spending more time. So it is something that I'll continue to explore. I'll continue to try to balance that, but I want to get out there and be able to enjoy these challenges. I want to show my kids that they should enjoy doing these types of challenges and go out and pursue big goals. So there's a fine line to walk, but I'll try to do that.
So how much is too much? I went to go and speak to Claire Brutal, who regularly does crazy challenges, to ask her about how she feels about exercise in her life.
I do exercise for fun, but I always have to have something to train for, and it always has to be something stupid that I don't think I can do or I'm terrified of. And I kind of am trying to back off from that a little bit now, so I just train, so I feel good. So it's like, because I think that's important, that I'm not constantly pushing myself and driving myself to these huge challenges, because that can be quite damaging, I think.
And recently you did a challenge called the Tour and you broke yourself.
I did. People say, about finding your limits, and I actually found mine. That which is amazing, isn't it? Yeah, I did. It sort of occurred to me afterwards, actually, that I had found my limit with that one. And it's a bit frustrating because I can do it if I have different feet or a different spine. It's literally, I found the limit in terms of my pain tolerance. I couldn't take this pain anymore that I have with my feet and my back and stuff. So essentially it was my limit. Yeah, I found it.
Of course, there can be bumps on the way, and some of them can be cataclysmic. Helen Jenkins MPE told us about how she navigated her road to recovery.
I've suffered a number of injuries through my career. I ended up having to have a spinal fusion a few years ago, and I wanted to return to competing. That was my goal. It seemed like such a daunting challenge at the time. I was the most unfit I'd ever been, and to get back to my peak fitness just seemed like such a long way. And so what I did along the way was set myself small goals, and these were tiny things when I first started. My first kind of tumble turn in the pool, my first 10-minute run outside. They were all little things, but every little goal that I achieved felt like a win, and that definitely helped me. It made me a lot happier. It kept me on track towards my big goals of getting back and competing. If I just focused on that overall goal of getting back and competing, I think it would have been too daunting and I would have failed. So small goals along the way definitely kind of kept me happy, focused and motivated.
So is that it? Is it all about competitiveness? I went to go and speak to someone who has inspired me on my journey. He's in his 60s and he's still competing in CrossFit Opens. And I wanted to ask him about happiness and how he feels about exercise as you move into your later years. Why are more people of your age living active lifestyles?
I think it possibly comes down to habit. I think a lot of people get into the exercise habit when they're younger and they hopefully carry it on. It comes up for your upbringing as well. If you haven't done a lot of this sort of stuff when you are younger, then it might be quite hard to get into it. So I think if you are used to doing it, it becomes something that's natural to you. If you've been competitive as a sports person when you were younger, or your family exercised, then you might have that inbuilt desire to do the same sort of thing.